up, beautiful people?
What is going on? Why do I look so? Look how weird my camera looks. I look like I'm like halfway below in the camera.
You look fine to me.
You think so? I feel like I'm. Go ahead.
I realized I have to mute up my headphones. For this podcast, to show which side I'm on, have a Trader Joe's salad. Completely vegetarian, fully just walnuts and cranberries and all that bullshit, and feta cheese.
So, all that, okay, it's a descriptor. I appreciate that. I guess another question that I would have is, are you in fact like a vegetarian?
Yeah, bro.
Interesting. Seriously? Like on purpose?
Yeah, no, it's accidental, dude.
Wait, no. Let me start this over. So you made the conscious decision to decide that you were eating nothing but vegetable or plant-based type foods on purpose? Or are you like Yvonne used to be and you're like a carbitarian where really all you do is eat quesadillas?
I'm a vegetarian. Except for one thing. If you want to be an asshole about it.
What?
A hole about it.
Okay.
I would be classified as a sushitarian because the one thing I eat that isn't vegetarian is sushi. That's it. Literally not fish, just Japanese sushi in a sushi roll.
Okay.
Because it's just too good. Just too good.
I feel like we've had a version of this discussion in the past, right?
Yes, we have.
So we're going to get into this today, and we're going to have the conversation a little bit as to the whys, right? I like to understand the why. But what you just told me leads to the impression that nothing about this is health related, which would or should be a viable reasoning behind the decision. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. Very interesting. Also, sushi's gross, dude. Like, okay, sushi's a vibe.
You don't like sushi? That's because you live in New Mexico, dude. You don't live near any oceans. Of course you think it's gross. You live in the middle of a fucking desert. Of course your sushi's gross.
First of all, that actually has nothing to do with
that logic.
So here's what I'll say. I'm actually, as we're talking, I'm looking down because I'm trying to post on my Instagram. I haven't posted on my Instagram in a little while. So I'm going to post so everybody can come and join us. That's why I'm multitasking here. But the reason I stopped eating sushi or considering the idea of sushi, I actually think sushi is like a whole vibe. I kind of wish I could eat sushi. Because it's a vibe. Like I remember I was out in Vegas with Pace. This was like a year and a half ago at one of Pineda's events. So I'm out there and there was a sushi spot in the hotel we were staying at. So we're down there. And that actually tracks for me. Do you have sushi with your McRib or do you do those separately? So we're sitting there and he orders sushi. And apparently at sushi places, they have a little rock. So that way, if you get steak, you can cook the steak on the rock.
Wait, that's so funny. It's steak with sushi?
Yeah. So I took the little rock that you're supposed to use to cook the steak and I started cooking the fish on it. And the level of quickness that Pace started cussing at me and calling me derogatory names. It was like, what kind of a dumbass? It was like, everybody look at this dumbass. What is he doing?
That's really funny.
So I do unfortunately miss out on the vibe of the experience of sushi consumption. But you know what else I miss out on, Jonah? I miss out on parasites. Disgusting.
Have you ever gotten a parasite from sushi?
Parasite. Have you ever Googled parasites in association with sushi?
That wasn't my question. Have you ever gotten a parasite from sushi? I've never gotten a parasite from sushi.
Have you ever burned your hand on the stove, or did you just decide not to touch fire in advance?
I don't know where we're going with. What does that even mean?
Preventative medicine, bro. You don't have to have the problem in order to prevent yourself.
Comment in the comment section if you understood what the hell he just meant by that.
I feel like that was a very clear metaphor. Anyways, that being said, guys, welcome to the Prophet and Paradox podcast. We're already getting into it.
Yeah, we really didn't do an intro.
Conversation is your food killing you? we're going to talk about modern day diets, which is somewhat fitting because you guys might notice I was out of commission last week. I was not here. And full transparency, as is about to be posted on my Instagram, I'm still very much not in commission. I feel like I got hit by all of the trucks. So I'm largely faking it and pushing through because I said I was going to be here, so I'm going to be here. But I think it's all fitting. It all comes back to what is up with our health. You get one body, right? And you got to make the most out of it. And I think what you do and what you put in your body has something to do with that. So we're going to talk about that today. Jonah, I have to, for the sake of OCD not driving me crazy, I have to turn my camera off and lower this thing because I feel like I'm a little.
I can take over for a second.
So take it for a second. I'll be right back. We're going to get into the conversation. Guys, if you're here and you're watching this, call your friends and your aunties and your uncles. Send them the link. Have them come. If you ever done like one of those grapefruit for 4-day only with cayenne pepper cleanses, or you were a vegan like this weirdo here, I'm just kidding. Love you all, vegans. Or anybody else, we would love to have you as a part of the conversation because we're going to get into this today and see if our food is in fact killing us. BRB.
I love it, guys. So I'm going to also quickly say for the people on Instagram, come onto YouTube. You actually get to interact with us. We'll like, if you have like an interesting opinion on diets, we'll like even bring you up here potentially. Instagram, I'm not going to really be able to look at your comments, but YouTube, I will. So today we're going to be talking about the health side of diets, right? We could get into like political beliefs, why people have different diets, but we're really going to talk about like what we think is like the healthiest type of diet. If you're going from like a pure health perspective, my diet is not the healthiest type of diet. I don't think vegetarianism is the healthiest type of diet, but I'm going to give like we're going to give like different types of arguments. I'm going to like talk about different things, talk about why I'll go a little bit into why I'm a vegetarian. If you have a diet, we'd love to hear your opinion too. And we're going to go into different diets and the pros and cons and just all that type of stuff. We may or may not have articles. It might be a riffing at one today. I don't remember, but we're going to get into it. Yes. So omega-3 and 6, for anyone who doesn't know, they're in all fish. Omega-3 and 6 you find in fish a lot of times. That's like the healthy stuff. Luke says steak and eggs. I really like that. Steak and eggs, I mean, it tastes great. Grass-fed beef is really good. Elk and eggs, all of that is really healthy. The main issue with food in America is, I think, factory farming. It's my personal opinion. I think it's kind of immoral the way we treat animals. I think it's also very unhealthy how many antibiotics we put into animals as well. Right? It's just not good. There's no way it's good for you to be eating a cow that's been stock full of antibiotics, right? There's just no shot. You have to get it. You have to get meat from local ranchers. Honestly, you have to get everything basically locally made, more or less, for it to be truly healthy, right? I'm eating a Trader Joe's salad right now. It's quote unquote healthy, but it probably has preservatives. It's definitely got some microplastics in it just because it came in like a plastic container, right? And Gianmarco, you can look this up. Gianmarco's our producer. Look this up while I'm talking because I want to fact check this. Someone told me this recently. They did a study. I'm going to take Keanu out of here. This is my time. They did a study. Theoretically, I watched like a TikTok or something. I should have put it in the chat. And I don't know if it's true. I need you, Margot, you to fact check me on this. Where they tested different people's, they got like little snippets of different people's testicles, and 100% of them found microplastics in them, right? They're now considering that like the whole testosterone issue, they think it highly, highly has to do with the prevalence of plastics, microplastics in our food, in our fish, in just like everything, because we wrap everything in plastic. I would be curious to see when we started using plastic a lot I don't know what year it was, but I think it was around the 70s or 80s testosterone started dropping. And I feel like the 70s or 80s are probably when we started doing a lot of plastic. Right? So that's what I'm thinking. Again, people on Instagram, if you want to comment and be part of the conversation, come onto my YouTube. It's just my name. Just gonna throw it out there because I see a lot of comments on Instagram. The year was 1998. A computer blogger I followed, heavy set his whole life to that point, suddenly became slim. Walked around known as his brand, ensuring omega-3 and 6 were in his diet is the key. Maybe. I don't know. Soon I'll have just my own farm. Switching out the carbs to protein and adding food combining was the other part. He remained slim. So here's the most interesting thing to me. We'll go through the different diets, right? I'll start giving my opinions on every single type of diet, right? Jamarco, keep fact checking me. Is this the testicle one? Wait, put that in the private chat so that I can like bring it up, or like share your screen so we can bring it up, because I want to read that study. So I thought that was crazy that all our testicles have microplastics. It was 100%. It wasn't like a, if I'm right, if TikTok is right, which it definitely could be wrong. But if you can share your screen, Jamarco, and I kind of want to bring up that study just to like prove like how screwed we are with food, right? It's not good, you know. That's Piano. Are you back? I don't know if you're doing that. Okay, here, I'll bring it up. Hold on. Share screen. Because I'm just so curious. Okay, The Guardian, pretty reliable source. Scientists say discovery may be linked to decades-long decline in sperm counts in men around the world. They tested 20 set3 human testes as well as 47 testes from pet dogs. They found microplastic pollution in every single sample, right? Every single one. They were in postmortems. They think they got them from people in postmortems. It's basically PVC from the plastics. So basically, guys, at least that The Guardian is going, it is impossible to avoid microplastic in your testicles. Now, I know that wasn't the only thing we want to talk about, but I thought that was freaking crazy that it's actually in the modern day, everyone has microplastics in their testicles, and that's why they think testosterone is going down. It's nothing that anyone else, that's what they think it is right now. So this is the right answer, and it's also a boring answer. Believe in yourself. Yes, true. No single right dietary answer works for everyone. But also, that's no fun. I'm going to give my opinion. If anyone has really strong opinions or anybody has any experiences with certain diets, comment in the comment section. I'll bring you up. But here's my experience, right? There are different things you have to worry about with diets. We're going to start with the health one. I believe the healthiest diet. Keanu, are you back? You are back. I think the healthiest diet, my personal opinion, is paleo. Like if you're going for a pure health thing, I think paleo is the healthiest diet. Which for people who don't know, that's like you're cavemaning it. You're eating legumes, greens.
Wait, legume or legume?
Legume beans. Okay. You're not. I don't think you're eating any carbs. You're not eating rice. You're eating. Actually, legumes might not even be a part of it. You're eating only things that like a caveman would eat, which is like greens, meat, and I think that's it. Actually, let's make sure I'm not a goddamn idiot. Paleo diet. What does that mean? Yeah, it's like whole foods. So fruits and vegetables, lean meats, fish, eggs, nuts and seeds, potatoes. That's like basically the diet. I think that's the healthiest. Maybe a Mediterranean diet, which is close to that. It's like a lot more lean meats like chicken and fish, and then a little bit of greens, and then a little bit of like rice or something like that. Those I think are the healthiest diets, right? I think those are the ones we're most evolved for. I think those are the ones that give you the most amount of nutrition. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Keanu? What do you think is the healthiest diet?
So I think this is actually a very, very interesting conversation, and I'll tell you why. Because if there's anything I've learned, is I genuinely believe that diets are very personal. And I think that's for a couple of different reasons. One, I think because everybody's respective body chemistry, biological makeup is different. But I also think it's because everybody's state of health is different, right? So I think that if you had to break down what is the healthiest diet, I think that's a very subjective conversation because what are you comparing against? I think that's the first question you have to ask is what are you comparing it against? Are you comparing it against science that's usually slanted, right? And I'm multitasking a little bit. I'm trying to post this thing, guys, on Instagram for everybody. But I'll give you an example, and this goes a little bit into the stuff that you said you didn't want to talk about just yet. But how many of us have you ever seen any of those, documentaries on Netflix or whatever?
Have I ever
Jonah?
seen a documentary on Netflix?
On
I have
health.
seen
On
a
health.
documentary.
About health related documentaries. I'm done with my post, so I can pay
I
attention
watched
now.
one vegan one before.
Okay, that's my point. I watched one vegan one. Here's my concern. In my experience, let me give you guys. Well, in my experience, a lot of these conversations are biased. They're biased because people have an agenda. They're biased because people have personal experiences. They're biased for a number of different reasons. Whether it's from a malicious place or not is a different conversation, but bias doesn't have to be associated with malice. So I think the issue that we run into is one, we're starting from a horrible place in the United States, at least when it comes to nutrition. And then two, when you go and try to get healthy, all you have is a million different slanted, completely conflicting, and biased points of view. Now, you're smirking, and I don't know if it's because I'm not answering your question. I think the healthiest diet, number one, is the one that's most correct for your health at that time. I think two, the healthiest diet is one that is best fit for your personal body or chemical makeup. Three, I would say the healthiest diet is just one doesn't have crap in it, right? Remove all of the not real foods. There is probably a better answer than that third one, especially. But even if we can just get to the bare minimum of get chemicals out of your body, I think that in and of itself would far advance us in the
Is
health
that
conversation.
possible?
Yes.
How would you do that? Because, like, other than owning your own farm, right? It somehow your food has to be preserved to get to you. Like if you live in a city, right? I don't feel like it's possible to get them like completely without microplastics. Like we just said, 100%. It was only like 27 test tubes, but it was 100% had microplastics in them. Right? I'm not even sure if it's possible in the modern day era to get food that is constantly chemically free.
I agree. So I'll give you guys a brief synopsis. I feel like I'm having this conversation a lot recently. A lot of you guys saw, I just posted this my social media a week back. I was in the emergency room. I am still not much better than I was the day I went to the emergency
I'm sorry,
room.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Which is why I kind of unplugged last week. The reality is I probably need another week or so to unplug until we figure this out. I had to go and get some more tests on Friday. I have another appointment this coming Friday. Not a great situation.
I'm sorry. I didn't even know that.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, but this is life. These are the things that we deal with. But when I talk about what I'm about to say and what we're going to discuss tonight, I can say this from going on 20-year battle with health to the extreme where I have studied so much when it comes to health and nutrition. My dad passed last year, however many months it's been, because of extremely poor health situations. I had a grandmother that passed, two grandmothers that passed because of extremely poor health situations. Multiple family members, and then myself included, who have dealt with health struggles. Now, I would say most of us have. Mine have just been severe enough to where they're extremely debilitating. What's my point? I put a lot of thought into this. I put so much research into it that I almost went and got certified as a nutritionist, probably in like 2010-ish, because I was so passionate about it and because I had put so much effort into it that I just wanted to have the piece of paper to back it and to learn anything that I may have been missing. I didn't because I hate school, but I say this because I put a lot of time really, really researching all of these different things. That being said, me dealing with my health struggles, and we can talk about some of the solutions that I've found. I'll fast forward to recently, last handful of years. There was a diet that we did probably, was it 3 years ago now, babe? 3-4 years ago, Kaufman? It's called the Kaufman diet. It's basically a mycotoxin-free diet. That's what it is. Are you familiar with what mycotoxins are, Jonah?
No, not really.
It's
I mean, I know what the word probably means, but I feel like I don't really know what you mean by it.
So mycotoxins is really just the scientific word for mold. That's really what it is. Mold.
For mold?
Mold.
Specifically mold, not anything else?
Mold. Mycotoxins are mold. Okay. Right? That's the general classification. Now, there are a bunch of different types of mycotoxins, and there's a bunch of different types of mold. Black mold is one that most people are familiar with in the real estate space. Why, Jonah? What happens if you were to buy a house that had black mold in the house?
You need to remediate that because it's super unhealthy, and you'll die if you breathe that for too
long. Correct. So you couldn't sell a house on the market open, knowing that there's just some black mold chilling in the corner, right?
Right.
Yep. Why do I bring this up? So I came across this study, learned about this guy. His name is Doug Kaufman, knowthecause.com. You can go to his website. I have no affiliation with the guy, but you can go check it out for yourself. Guy was in Vietnam, ended up getting Agent Orange, and him having Agent Orange when he got back from Vietnam, he was a medic in Vietnam, put him on this journey of figuring out how to solve Agent Orange, what led him to this firm belief that one of the biggest foundations of illness in the human body is mold. One of the primary foundations, mold in the body. It's, if you deduce it, it's believed that mold, inflammation, and mucus are probably the three biggest foundational problems of any health issue in the body, right? People could debate that, but his whole career is built around mycotoxins. And so I went into having a lot of research and putting a lot of energy into understanding how a mycotoxin-free diet. Fun fact, Jonah, a little side note. There was a study that was done that says 76%. Now, don't quote me on this. This is not medical advice. There are studies that have been done that say that about 76 or so % of cancers are actually misdiagnosed fungal infections.
Yeah.
You can look it up.
I need a fact check on that. I don't know about that one, bro. 76% of cancer is fungal.
Now, that I don't know the basis of that study. I don't know the scope of that study. So I will put that as just that's a lofty statement. However, here's what I can say that you can look into much more effectively. As of 4 or 5 years ago, there were over 1,000 different articles in PubMed, one of the most respected, if not the most respected medical journal in the nation.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you for 5 seconds. I just want to shout out Mama Corchin in the chat. Thanks for always supporting Mom. Or throw it out there. That's her opinion.
Nice to virtually meet you. I love everything.
She's very big on food. Mom, if you want to come on, you can. I think she has a really interesting experience. She's on a diet of no sugar, no carbs.
So that's largely so. Would love to hear her opinion on this. So this leads to your point, Jonah. where you're talking about, is it impossible to get anything that's not processed or doesn't have preservatives? So in researching this, and you can look this up, PubMed, very respected medical journal, has over 1,000 different cases where they took people who, I believe the parameters were stage 4 terminal cancer. All options failed. Nothing was working. Stage 4 terminal cancer, nothing else was going to work. They were told to go home and get their affairs in order, right? That was where they were. And so as a last-ditch effort, because there was nothing else to do, they decided to, as an alternative to cancer treatment, since all of the cancer treatment failed, is they would put them on an antifungal regimen, a severe antifungal regimen. To my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who does a fact check on this, on average, the biggest side effect of a fungal cleanse is just like anything else. It's just a cleanse. You would have to send your mom. We cannot see you. We can see your comments, but did you send her the
comments, Mom? Here, Mom. Jamarco, put in the chat, put in the private chat, Mom. I'll send you the link so you can give your opinions on food. My mom has been a foodie forever. She's done an insane amount. She's done way more research than me on food and how to make it healthy and how to make it good.
For this conversation, and she is.
What?
You're unqualified for this conversation, and she.
In comparison to her, 100%. She's like, she actually researches this. I see an article every once in a while about my testes having microplastics, and I don't like it.
Okay. Did you get them out, or did you just leave the plastics there?
No, they're in all of our testes. So you were gone for this part.
No, I heard it. I just wasn't sure if you checked everybody's testes or if you're just assuming it's only yours. How many testes did you check in this study is what I'm wondering, Jonah.
They tested 27. How many did I specifically?
How many did you specifically confirm?
That's an undisclosed amount.
Okay. All right. We can talk about it later.
Okay, Mom, I'm gonna send you this over WhatsApp. So you can come on and give your opinion, because it'd be pretty funny to have my mom on one of my podcasts.
That would be amazing to have your mom on.
And she actually knows a lot about this. So she would have been really good for the education one too. I should have invited her to that, but
you definitely should have.
Okay, I'm just gonna. I don't have no idea about the mold or anything.
So you don't want me to finish that one, is what I'm hearing.
No, I want you to bring it back to food.
I'm going to. This is all related to food. Okay. This is 100% food. So they went to an antifungal cleanse. Here's what I'll say. There are multiple people, Jonah, are you even listening, bro?
No, I'm debating whether to make a joke or not. I'm listening though.
That's where's the paradox part come into play? Right? That's where the paradox comes into play. Profit.
Wait, keep going. I'm listening. I'll be respectful.
So, but your mom's here. Should we bring her up first, or should I finish my point?
Finish your point, and then we'll bring my mom on.
Perfect. So the summary is well over 1,000 documented cases of people with stage 4 cancer. No cancer treatment worked. They were sent home to put their affairs in order. They were put on an antifungal cleanse to simply remove the molds from their body. Well over 1,000 cases of their cancer, which clearly apparently was not cancer, went into full remission because they were going to die of cancer they didn't have, because what they actually had is mold infestation in their body. And a simple treatment of mold mycotoxin cleanse removed that. So how does that relate to food? This guy went on this full diet. We went on this mycotoxin diet. When we went on the diet, I'll summarize this in 30 seconds. I was like, okay, I'm going to get mold out of my diet. So what do? Mycotoxins, no mushrooms. Realized, oh, no, that's not it. You have to get anything that it can actually become moldy. So you start learning that corn, anything corn related is extremely moldy. Well, we know that. If you ever go to a grocery store and see corn, it's covered in mold, right? If it has the stalks on it. So that's not uncommon. So that's why.
Well, any food can have mold on it.
Any food can have mold on it. Some foods are more prone to mold. Peanuts, for example, highly infested with mold. Coffee, if it's not checked and mycotoxin free, because you can buy mycotoxin free coffee. It's a thing. Most coffee, if it is not certified mycotoxin free, covered in mold because of the way that the beans are stored, right? So peanuts, mold, there's lots of different foods.
Okay,
so
wait, I have a question for you then.
What?
What about eating mushrooms?
Oddly
That's
enough,
literally mold.
It's a different kind of mold and affects your body differently. So many actual mushrooms don't have mycotoxin effects on your body, which is very, very interesting. So here's the final 2 points I'll make, because this can go into a different rabbit hole we won't go into. But here's the final 2 points. When I was, oh my God, look at Dara Ellison. Bro, I've almost texted you like 12 times in the last 2 weeks, oddly enough. Here's the final 2 points I'll make to this, Jonah, and we can talk to your mom, because this goes into a different rabbit trail. Sure. When I looked in, I was like, okay, so let's just remove the list. He has a bunch of books. I went to the books. I got everything that has prone to mycotoxins. We got it out. There was 2 that became really big. 1, corn. What I realized is that there is actually 100 different names for corn. And it's in almost everything as a preservative, which was scary. But that wasn't even the worst one. You know what the worst one was? Citric acid. Citric acid. Do you know what citric acid is made out of, Jonah?
Acid? It's a type of acid in fruit.
So citric acid used to come from citrus fruits. Limes, oranges, citrus fruits. They used to take the citric acid and they used to convert
There is citric acid in those fruits still.
Correct, which is where we used to store our citric acid, because citric acid is a great preservative. However, years back, they changed that. Now, I think it's 98+% of citric acid actually comes from, drumroll, black mold. Aspergillus niger.
I'm gonna need some fact checks from you on
Google that. Google black mold
citric acid. Where does it come
share your
from?
screen? Share your screen.
Sorry, Mom. I gotta fact check.
She can be up there for this part of the conversation.
I gotta fact check some of this stuff live, because I've never heard this mold theory. I'm gonna throw it out there. Black mold,
citric acid.
You just want me to look that up?
That's it.
Well, some citric acid is derived from lemon juice. The majority of citric acid, commercially sold, is actually from black mold. Whoa! All right, from bonappetit.com. Okay. Interesting.
Now it's above 95%. Look at 99, approximately 99%.
There's a couple websites, so I'll give you that one. That just sounded crazy to me.
Yeah. So just for context, and then we can bring your mom up, and we can circle back to this if we need to.
Yeah, I don't know how much my mom. I appreciate you for coming on.
So here's what's crazy, bro. Like they said, 99%. This is where I think the foundation of our problem is. And I really wanted to drill this home, because people need to pause for a second and let this sink in. 99% of citric acid comes from black mold. The same black mold that if we saw it in the corner of a house, we couldn't sell that house, because being in the general vicinity of black mold is extremely harmful for your health. Yet somehow the FDA was able to get it approved to get put into almost 100% of our packaged food. That in and of itself scared the crap out of me. And it really made me realize we have a huge problem here, and packaged food is on that list, unfortunately.
That's really interesting. All right, well, I'm going to do some you got me at least want to do some research on it, because that's really interesting. Let's bring my mom up.
Let's do it.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, everybody. So I'm not going to eat citric acid anymore. I'm going to look. And darn about coffee. Gosh.
You can.
That's hard.
The type of coffee you drink, Mom, is so bougie. I bet you're okay.
You can look it up. So fun fact, I have 2 Nespresso makers that we've had for years, because we are huge coffee fans. This one is like Light Boost. Coffee manufacturers know about this. Nespresso is certified mycotoxin free. There's 100 different companies online that you can get. You just have to get that they're certified mycotoxin free, and you can get back on your coffee grind.
I need a medium roast. You made me depressed with all these. There's nothing left to eat.
Yeah, Kihana, what are you doing?
I'm sorry.
Well, citric acid, I'll know. Yeah, I mean, basically, and also what you said. Look, I do believe we're all born with certain genetics and we have weaknesses in our body. And I think a diet should be specified. But I think anything that is organic and has vitamins and not processed, nothing that people make, no sugar, just whole grains, lots of vegetables, lots of proteins and less proteins, but that should be some. Fats are important, but things that come, from nuts and avocados and, not corn oil and things like that. And then just a balanced diet, and then the right amounts also, right amounts of each and also right amount of food. We don't have to overfeed ourselves either, and that's hard.
So, Mom, I gotta ask you, why was I always fed just mac and cheese and cottage cheese from like age 4 to 6?
Because you wouldn't eat. I mean, Jesus Christ, you threw out the chocolate from the
That makes
Easter
so much
basket.
sense.
I mean, you only liked the jelly. You were a very picky eater.
I was an insanely picky eater, apparently.
Yeah.
All I would eat, it was like cottage cheese,
Peanut
mac and cheese, and Keanu, you remember push-ups? I don't even know if you remember those.
Push pops? The push pops?
It was like it wasn't a popsicle, but yeah, push-ups.
Yeah, I know what you're talking. Yes, I do remember what you're talking.
I don't think they make them anymore, but that's like literally all I used to eat. So
and you always ate French rolls, no butter. You liked Caesar salad with your dressing. You started
Caesar salad took a while.
Expanding your taste. Yeah, well, and your sister went the other way. She almost got more picky in some ways, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a hard choice. Obviously, things that don't have plastic and man-made, anything man-made kind of stuff, as natural as possible. And definitely you need carbs. I eat all sorts of potatoes.
So wait,
and
Mom, can I
ask
you a question?
What do you mean no carbs? I eat fruit in the morning.
I forgot your diet. I completely forgot.
Yeah.
So what like I just want you to talk about, because I know you're on your diet now, right? Like how have you felt differently since being on that diet versus like when you could eat everything, right? Like I mean, like you don't have to go into all the personal stuff with it, but we can get into just like how you felt and how you like what your diet is, because I already said it wrong, and then just like what it did for you personally.
Well, it put me at a normal weight that I stay at. That is very unusual. For over 7 years, it's just a way of living and creating really healthy food. And sugar just wants to make me eat more sugar. So and that's in everything. And that gets your hunger, you get all whacked out. You eat like a meal with sugar in it and your brain just wants to keep having it because it's such a addiction. Sugar is like meth. It's like a high.
Right.
Flour
Isn't it literally the same receptors as like opioids in the end? I might be wrong.
Yeah,
about
it's dopamine. I believe it's dopaminergic, and that's where it has the same effects, right? Because it works on the dopamine receptors, and as a result, it gets you. It has similar effects.
It's something like that.
I also, am off. I mean, I grew up on artificial sweeteners. I don't have any of those. Those, I feel like I was poisoning my system. But, now there's so many things in the environment, like because of plastics, so large fish, or, you got to be careful with everything. Now I got to look at the coffee, is my favorite Pete's coffee.
I think Pete's is good. You buy some organic, freshly roasted coffee.
No, not
probably my K-Cups.
All of theirs isn't organic. Maybe I should just get water processed organic stuff.
I don't know. My K-Cups more likely have mold than your Pete's coffee.
I mean, basically, it's having some structure versus going up and down and using food in a way. But, I mean, also food is pleasurable. It should be part of life. You shouldn't be, I tended to restrict and then binge. It should be part of your everyday where you just you're loving what you eat, and you're, you know, and enjoying it while your body's enjoying you eating it, kind of thing. There's so many different kinds of foods that are
So wait,
healthy.
apart from the weight, like since you've done, I know it's no sugar and no flour. I guess you do eat some carbs,
A
but
lot,
like,
yeah. Oats.
do you feel like there's any difference in your body other than losing weight? Obviously, losing weight is great, but like, did you notice any like mental clarity or anything? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, emotionally, you're not all wrapped up in the food either. I mean, people go traveling just for food. You're not, you know, you get to live life in more of a real, food is a part of life, but it shouldn't, consumption should not be your sole goal every moment. And you know, I mean, you exercise more consistently. It's stress releaser. I know how to cook really good food that tastes really good with good products. And you know, obviously, if you can buy things, you know, organic stuff is more expensive, certain lean things, but it should be a variety of foods. I mean, think of it like the stock market. It's better for a variety, not only for the vitamins, but just in case, like, oh crap, I've been eating tuna and now I'm high on mercury and about to die. I mean, it's better to just have a variety just to make sure you're not getting too much of anything, you know, and too little of anything. And then you just sort of, as you age, you need different things, you know, you need different things at different times in your life too.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. No, I definitely get it. Okay.
I'm gonna take off, you guys. I'm gonna listen, but I have to go in the store and get the dog home.
Okay. There you go. We got the dog home here, so I get it. Thank you so much for hopping in.
Love you, Mom. Hi, Beatty.
Say hello, Beatty. Beatty, look at it's Jonah.
I don't think he remembers me anymore.
Yeah, probably not. He's just thinking, where's the next food? What do you want? Anyway.
I love you, Mom.
I love you too. Nice being
with
you guys. This was fun because, okay. Bye.
Bye. Love you.
Love you.
Okay. Cool.
Love it.
That's my mom's that's my mom, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think anyone's ever met her yet. Because she doesn't have as much to say about real estate, but she definitely has much more to say about food.
Yeah.
All right. I want to make this a little bit more controversial, though.
Do it,
yes,
bro.
everybody's goddamn diet depends on them, yada, yada, yada. But there are certain things that everybody should do, right? Okay. I think there's like certain things that are like universal, right? Some of them are pretty obvious. Sugar is literally a drug. I actually think I think there's a decent debate to be had about whether children should be allowed to have additive sugar. To be honest, I think that's a huge part of the obesity crisis. Honestly, food in the end is heart attacks, heart problems are the number one killers of Americans. That's all related to our diet, right? People say I've heard lots of doctors say it's red meat. It's not red meat. It's the type of red meat you're eating, usually. Like if you're eating McDonald's hamburgers that have preservatives in it. I think basically the two things, if you want to be like the most healthy, would be one is get added sugar out of your life, which is incredibly hard to do. And two, whatever you're eating, look at the box. I've been doing this recently. If you don't know what the fuck are the ingredients, like if it's just a bunch of chemicals, don't eat it. Basically, like literally, like I looked at bread. I looked at some of my bread. I'm like, what the hell is this? What, like, I now have bread. I don't have like bread that has this, I don't think, with me anymore. Did you know that like bread at a grocery store has like 15 ingredients most of the time? Not like fucking Wonder Bread. I'm not talking about Wonder Bread.
Even the
I'm
healthy
talking
stuff.
about like
746
healthy, what I thought was healthy bread, and I'm like, what? And then now I finally got bread that's just says flour and water, basically. Which I'm like, this is bread. This is like actually bread, what it's supposed to be. I never knew that. So anyway, so like that blew my mind. That's how I've been deciding things at the grocery store recently, is just like, do I know every single ingredient? If there's an ingredient I don't know, I'm going to try not to eat it. Now, I'm not perfect. I do have a frozen pizza every once in a while just because it's hard for me to have time sometimes. But I think those two are like the main things. Yeah, Luke, I'll get you the link. Luke's.
Yeah. So if we're going to get, and I don't know what direction Luke's going to take this, but I mean, if we're taking off the gloves, let's get down to it. Why do you think? Why is all this crap in our food in the first place? Why are we in the greatest country on earth and the freest country on the planet and all of the different monikers that the United States has, and we have to be scared about what's in the box on the food that we're eating?
So
yet we're supposed to have these regulatory agencies who are supposed to be protecting us, when according to your very clear statement you just made, that's exactly the opposite of what's happening. Why?
So I'll give the really boring answer. It's like I like our dynamic of me kind of being pro system and you being anti-system.
No, you love the system.
Pro system. If we didn't have those things in the food, then we wouldn't be able to transport it, and then it wouldn't be preserved, and then certain areas wouldn't even be able to get food, and some area, and like our food would be incredibly expensive.
So your argument is that red dye number 40 is the only is we need to have it in our food in order to be able to eat. That's your argument.
Well, I think it's cheaper. I think it's an economic problem. What?
Cheaper than what?
Real food.
So the alternative is that poison people because it's more cost effective?
Hold on a second. Hold that thought. Luke, I gave you the link on Instagram. Basically, yes. I'm gonna give that answer of like, I'm answering your question of why it is.
Okay.
Do you think we're purposely getting poisoned though? That's the other question.
I think that even if I don't have an answer to that, there is more of a logical basis for this being intentional than there is for it being more cost effective. That's my back of the napkin deduction on that.
Okay, why?
Because you have to put a lot of effort into putting all of this chemical compound crap together. You have to put a lot of effort to acknowledging the fact that those things are medically disastrous for the human body, but still get the governing bodies to agree to make it okay for us to consume those products. You realize that the great majority of the Skittles, illegal in almost every country on the planet, against the law, because of how unhealthy they are. But we can get them at every gas station on the planet. Try to get healthy food at any gas station. Can't get that. But you can get Skittles pretty much. I can't think of a store that I could go into that sells anything edible that won't have some Skittles in it. So to tell me that there is a fiscally responsible, other than profit, which I wouldn't say is the only denominator, it's more fiscally viable for them to do that. It's just a hard stretch for me. Because
let me clarify. I want to ask you questions.
Okay.
So do you think it's the government, or do you think it's corporations paying the government to be able to put poison in our food so that they can sell more shit to us?
I think that's a chicken or the egg question, right? If I was going to put a tinfoil hat on, I would say that there was a point where the powers that be, and I think we could probably start this around the early 1900s, late 1800s. Look at Nikola Tesla. It is largely accepted that Nikola Tesla had all of the resources to create free energy. And then what happened? The powers that be shut him down because they made money on coal and on oil. His funders were the same people who were getting rich on the thing that Tesla would shut down. So they shut Tesla down so they could increase their profit. I think that probably happened in the food category. Fun fact you can research: marijuana actually was never called marijuana. The hemp industry, however, was going to destroy the cotton industry. So there's a whole, I think there's like a whole documentary that was done on this. To my understanding of the documentary, the hemp industry was about to beat the cotton industry. The cotton industry was in bed with all of these same names at the time. And they were threatened of the cotton industry going out of business by the hemp industry because it was better on pretty much every front. And so, in order to get the hemp industry put out of business, they put a smear campaign together. They took a drug that was coming from Mexico called marijuana that had nothing to do with cannabis. It was a completely different thing. And they attached the name to cannabis, called cannabis marijuana, because the people knew that people who were actually on marijuana were looking like, I guess, crackheads, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so psychologically, this smear campaign, which was really just a marketing ploy, shut down the entire hemp industry and was able to make it illegal because of a falsified smear campaign. Right?
So what's interesting about that story, though, is those are two private businesses battling, no?
Mm-hmm.
That's like my belief is the thing that I think is the issue. I lean more, I'm more liberal. I lean more towards corporations wanting to make a profit. And the thing is that our government is owned by corporations, in my opinion, right? Like I think corporations, like lobbyists, influence politicians who then make all our laws, right?
Okay.
That's my belief. I don't know. It's hard to say, right? But like that's my belief is I lean more towards corporations because in the end, who profits the most from preservatives?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't read this. I'm looking at it right now. I will put this in the private chat just in case, because I don't know if this is a legitimate. Actually, I'm gonna send this to you on WhatsApp, Jonah. I have not vetted this, so I'm not gonna put it out there. Otherwise, I would. Don't quote me on this, but you can read this. So I love that you said that because I clicked on this link as you said the word lobbyist. Have you ever heard of the food pyramid?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to summarize. I'm paraphrasing a lot because I cannot remember the specific details of this. So just know it was something along these lines. So the food pyramid is nonsense. There is nothing nutritionally viable about the food pyramid, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Fats are extremely healthy for you. Very long story short, the summarized story is 100 or so years ago, when the food industry was trying to put clear information out about what was and was not healthy, another competitor in the food industry lobbied against the government and essentially paid the FDA off to create something called the food pyramid. That's why we thought fats were so bad. Low fat, low, like the whole craze that happened for probably 70 years and still persists to a day, where low fat diets and eating cereal and those types of food and those like heavy grain based stuff was healthy for you. That was all something that the FDA knew was horrible for you, knew had disastrous health effects, but they used it and lobbied against the beef industry and the dairy industry in order to promote these industries because there was more profit in it. So the FDA literally approved what was known to be a completely falsified set of evidence around how nutrition actually worked, and it lasted a generation. So the government and the lobbyists that you're referring to as you trust willingly did what was in our worst effort and our worst interests to make more money and lied to us to get it approved.
Yeah. No, I mean, like 100%. First off, I don't trust the government on everything, right? I trust whatever, or I try to trust and try to research whatever the most concurrent science says, generally. If it gets political, that's a hard thing. I agree with everything you said, right? I think business interests made it where it was lobbied and then the food pyramid was released. Food pyramid is bullshit. That's not healthy at all, right? It has like grains. It's like 12 servings of grains or something at the bottom, which is crazy, right? I think you and I just might disagree on how to solve. Okay, how would you solve this problem? That I think might be the question where you and I disagree more. I think you and I agree on what the problem is. I agree that governments release disgusting policies on health and a bunch of other things too, not just health. But what's the cause of it? What's the root cause? You said that it was like a chicken and egg thing. I don't think it's like a chicken and egg thing. Personally, I think it's all about money. I think it's about businesses wanting to make more money, so then they lobby and get Congress to give them the edge, right? That's my personal belief. I think it starts with people trying to make money and then willing to pay congressmen who are infallible humans to.
Do you think there's a vested interest? And let's just throw out hypothetical questions here,
Sure.
right? Now, this is going tinfoil hat direction, so maybe this becomes a follow-up podcast from this. But we'll knock on the door for a minute.
You know, it'd be really funny. Side note: if like one day when we do like the conspiracy / thing, you and I actually get tinfoil hats. We put them on.
We should 100% do that. Do a conspiracy one, and we make cool hats.
Conspiracy one, and we're wearing tinfoil hats, and it's.
Yeah, Yvonne's gonna have to help me make a cool one, because if I make one, it's just gonna look like I made it into a cone, and I'm gonna look ridiculous. Okay, so let's knock on the conspiracy door for a second. Let me ask you a question, hypothetical question. Hypothetically speaking, would you think that it is more or less beneficial to a governing body to have a people who let me rephrase that question. Do you think a government would rather have extremely sharp, smart, challenging, strong, capable, independent thinkers as a general rule in their society? Or do you think they would prefer people who are numb, dumbed down, exhausted, foggy, unclear, and more apt to just kind of do what they're told and not really look into things too deeply? As a general rule, which do you think a government would prefer their people to be at a large scale?
I think it depends on the government, if you want my honest answer. I know where you're going with that, but I think it depends on what the government wants. I would say that governments that are based on power, or that like are solely based on power, so like communist or dictatorships, ones where like their main goal is to preserve power, would obviously want a dumbass population, right?
Okay.
A democracy, it's debatable. I think it kind of depends in a lot of ways. I don't know. It's like, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, like, okay, let's take our democracy. Let's not get into the whole, I don't know. Let's assume our democracy is stable. It's functioning how you and I have been told it to believe. Just for a second. I don't know if you believe that or not. That could be like a whole nother thing. No, let's assume that like when we vote for the, let's assume when we vote for the president, we voted for the president. Okay. Like, I'm just going to, I gotta start there just for the.
Okay. Well, for the sake of the foundation, yes, we live in your utopia. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just say if this was a theoretically, that was actually the system we had, right? In that society, I don't know if it would be better for either candidate if people are dumb, right? Because here's what I'm thinking. Your question makes me think that a democratic government would want the people dumb so that the current people could stay in power, right? I think if I might be mistaken, but it sounds like the reason why a government would want their people dumb is so that they can have more power, more control, right?
Okay.
The question is if you have a democracy, being one party or the other, are you more likely to gain power if the population is stupid or if the population is smart? I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing with like liberal versus conservative. I don't consider the liberal conservative divide as a smart versus stupid. I only consider it a good thing for the population to be stupid for a government if the government wants to become a dictatorship or wants to.
Okay, that was a lot up to your question, which I admire your desire to try to have a good answer to the question. All that demonstrates to me is that this
It
is a much
depends is the answer. I would
on
say
what
it
though? So
depends on the
let's talk about does
priorities of
the
the
United
government.
States, what do you think the United
The
States
current
would
United States,
well, not the one in the 50s, the one right now that we're
one
currently
right
living
now. Do the current people want people to be stupid via food?
No, not via food, but in general.
Just stupider in general?
Yeah. Does it benefit the government for us to be strong, smart, sharp, healthy, individual, capable free thinkers? Or is there a benefit, a vested benefit in us being numb and dumb and slow and sick?
In my head, the government would want a good mix of both.
Why?
I think you need people who can actually make money and do shit, do smart shit, produce a lot of money so that the government can tax them. You also need dumb people in order to do remedial jobs. Like,
how would you separate those? Quick answer. How do you separate who you want smart versus who you want dumb? First question, answer comes to.
I don't think you choose who's going to be smart or who's going to be dumb.
Okay. You don't think so? You don't think there would be a class-based decision on that, right? Because we're using your argument. They want some people to be strong, independent, free thinkers. They want some people to be dumbed down. Who do they want to be independent? Who do they want to be dumbed down?
They want people who are going to make them more money to be independent and strong.
Is it safe to say that affluent people who come from money would be more likely to be wanton? They would want them to have the ability to think freely, and people who are maybe more impoverished they would want. Okay, so could there be an argument to state that if that's true and that is an agenda, then you would pump all of the crappy things into the neighborhoods of people that you don't want to be thinking freely and give access to the stuff that's a little bit more healthy to the people that you want to be more affluent or who want to be able to make clearer decisions and provide, the financial wherewithal that they're hoping for. Is that a fair assumption?
It's possible. I would probably need proof that the government's doing that purposefully, because in my head, just as easily you could argue poorer people can't afford good food. And that's an issue, right? Like, is the government purposefully making organic food more expensive, or better food more expensive? Or is it that poor people literally just would never be able to afford those, and that's just a problem in and of itself?
Well, I mean, I think let's go back to the fact that this was originally a hypothetical question. And in your hypothetical world, where we asked, do they want people to be dumb or capable? You split the difference.
I think they would want a mix. I honestly think that they'd want a mix of smart and stupid people.
And you, back of the napkin math, assumed that they would want people who were already wealthy to continue to be wealthy and people who were already poor to continue to be dumbed down. And then it just so happens that after these 2 or 3 hypothetical scenarios, it comes to a real world where you go to the impoverished areas and they got 1,000 fast food restaurants on every corner.
It's possible.
But you go to
it's not possible. I just think I need proof that that's what's happening, and it isn't just the fact that poor people generally can only afford fast food.
Right? Poor people used to be able to afford whatever they could get on their farms, right?
Right.
Or whatever they could trade from their neighbors. Somebody along the way turned that into drive-thrus. Now, what that means, I don't know. Again, this started with a hypothetical question. So let's table that question, and here's my response.
Also, we got to get Luke on here eventually. He jumped in.
We'll bring Luke up here. We'll bring up here after this point. We'll bring Luke up here.
Sure.
Here's my belief. My belief, as we knock on the door of the conspiratorial thing, I believe that it is probably more beneficial for any government, if their goal is ultimate power, to have submissive, compliant people. It's just the nature of control. Having independent people who push back and challenge, especially in a governmental structure that allows and encourages that, puts the leaders in position to be removed from power. And people in power usually don't like to be removed from power, right? We're not talking about any amendments that have to do with any types of home protection right now, and we can save that for a different podcast. But let's be really, really clear. One thing that is never discussed in that debate was that one of the foundational reasons for that amendment, Jonah, was for one reason: so that the people could rise up against the government if the government got too big for their britches.
You mean the Second Amendment?
Was,
We're talking about the Second Amendment now?
correct.
Okay.
I'm gonna try not to say it so we don't get YouTubed.
We're not going to YouTube by the Second Amendment, bro.
You never know. You never know. I don't want to have any issues.
We're not going to get YouTube by the Second Amendment, dude. Well, that's fine to say.
Just to be clear, that is what that was created for. One of the foundational reasons was so people could do that. So we live in a governmental structure that not only allows for, but encourages its citizens to rise against leaders if those leaders become overpowerful and stop following the original foundational premise of this nation. Well, if your laws don't allow you to put the people down, my guess is people who are in power have a vested interest to come up with different ways to resist your enemies, especially when you're drastically outnumbered, right? So the more they start putting in policies that the people would disagree with, the better, the more interest a government hypothetically would have in putting those people in a position to not fight back the way they originally would have wanted to. People are less strong now, right? To the point that you were talking about earlier, male testosterone baselines have been cut in half since the 80s. It used to be 600. Now it's 300 to 400, right? And now we have a whole slew of other events that are happening as a result that are very, very clear in our nation as a result of just that one simple thing. So then the argument is, if we're talking hypothetically, just by the point you made at the beginning, testosterone has been cut in half. Testosterone is having a huge impact on the nation, reducing men's ability to do a lot of different things, right? The same people that when the amendment was written would have been the people that rose up. And diet has a lot to do with testosterone levels and microplastics. I don't know if there is a conspiratorial background behind this, but that paints a really, really interesting picture as to motive and opportunity, which in a court of law is enough to get a case brought up to have a discussion about. You know what I mean?
I would say. I think you make a good argument. I feel like it could just as easily be an economic thing where corporations are influencing the government to do these things. That's the thing. That's the hard part. What's up, Luke? That's the hard part.
As we chat, bro.
I'm not gonna say it because I already said my argument. But my issue is that how do you prove whether you're right that it's the government trying to obtain more power versus
I think there's
trying to make more money?
So one, I have two quick answers to that. Answer number one, that's a different podcast. Guys, if you would like us to actually have that podcast, I think that's a whole other podcast.
We went from is food killing you to are corporations or governments ruling your entire lives.
But I think that's a good podcast. If you guys would genuinely like us to go down that road, let us know. If you guys think we're being crazy and you don't like tinfoil or hats, let us know as well. We don't have to go down that road. I would really be interested in having this conversation if people are interested in hearing it. But let's just go back to the other side of it, even just on the financial side. Here's the reality, Jonah. Do you agree or disagree that legally in the United States, every corporation who is driven by profit still has to get government approval?
Yeah.
Right. So that by definition, it is impossible for the government to not be involved in the decision of what's being put into our body. And if the FDA is a neutral third party tasked with the protection of its citizens, then my question is, why do the for-profit models who may for-profit be willing to poison us? Why are they being allowed to do so if we're supposed to have a governing body that protects us? If the government does in fact have our best interest.
It's because of lobbying, in my opinion. I think it's because Congress is bought by
so does that not
corporations.
Well, first of all, that's a drastic switch in your original tune about your confidence in the government. But does that not, unfortunately, even though we're still talking about food, still lead back to a political motivation?
Does it lead back to a political motivation?
The government has to sign off on this.
Yes. Anything the government does ever is political by definition. So, yes. I guess the only disagreement that I think you and I have really is the origin of it. You think the origin is already starting in the government wanting more power over its citizenry.
I think that's
it's more likely it's corporations trying to influencing the government to make more money. It's just a difference of origin.
Probably a combination of both, and I can't qualify either perspective without going off into a really, really different rabbit hole. But I think
Luke,
it's not.
What's up?
Luke, what's up?
How you doing? Good to see you, Daniel.
What do you? I know we're getting into like a rabbit hole here, but good to see you.
Dude, I could add on to this tinfoil hat stuff. Like, I would say, like, why do you think they start wars so they can get rid of all the strong people?
Whoa,
interesting.
There you go.
Interesting. If we do that episode, you got to come back, Luke.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I will. And also, I just look at like if you look at every single country and who they have in charge of their health, they look like pieces of lard. So like, I don't know why you would even
wait. I'm kind of curious. Who's the head of the?
Go to like UK, any like European country, including the US. Like,
all right, this might be mean, but I'm gonna look at it at the USA's. What do you think? Do you think that's lard?
No, I don't know. That's a headshot. He looks like he's decently healthy. I can't tell.
He's okay.
That mustache is healthy. That's a healthy mustache.
Dude, bow tie game.
That's heavy.
On point though.
I feel like you don't wear enough bow ties, Jonah. Side note.
I should. I don't own any bow ties.
But okay. Also like.
Anyways, whatever. Sorry, you said that, so I was curious. So sorry, Luke. Keep going on.
No, you're good. I love the conversation. But yeah, in terms of nutrition, like.
Yeah, talk about nutrition because like tell people about your background. I mean, you were a huge lifter. You love weightlifting. We've talked about it before, right?
Yeah.
Talk about like what you see as like health and nutrition, especially for like getting yacked and gaining strength and all that good stuff.
I mean, if you want to get jacked, it really just comes down to your protein intake, right?
Okay.
Like now, like it's give or take a couple grams, but basically, however much you want to weigh or get to, you want to eat that many grams of protein. Like if you weigh 200 pounds, and you want to maintain that, eat 200 grams of protein, right? It's just like a bodybuilder's like cheat sheet, you could say, right? And like easy. Oh, how many grams of protein should I have? Oh, how much do I want to weigh?
Sure.
And then in terms of weight loss, like any diet that cuts out processed foods will work, right? You will see results if you're trying to lose weight. But at the end of the day, it's just calories in equals calories out, like calories are just energy. Your fat is stored energy. So if you want to lose fat, lose pounds, you just caloric deficit.
Can I push back on that, Luke?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Here's my pushback to the whole calories in versus calories out on diet. The issue is how your body feels with different food, right?
Yeah.
You're technically right. I could eat 2,000 calories of gummy bears and not lose weight. The issue is I'm gonna be I'm gonna like be so fucking hungry still. My body's gonna be going crazy because I think that's the issue with that model is like, and like personally, I think the thing is like, depending on what food you eat, you can actually eat an insane amount of food that isn't crazy caloric, but it fills you, and then you're more likely to lose weight than like 2,000 calories of gummy bears. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I genuinely go ahead, bro. Answer that, and then I'll give my response.
I was gonna say, I guess I was kind of assuming like a good diet because I've always ate pretty clean, right? So that's why like when people do the carnivore diet, like it's so hard to overeat meat because of how much protein you're consuming and how satiating it is. You can't eat too many calories, and then like you'll go down. And then as much as I like meat, like I'm like, okay, yes, you need fiber in your diet, right, from vegetables, and you need like all this other stuff too, so like well balanced is the best. And then also like you guys already discussed all this, it depends where you get your meat. Like I'm friends with like local ranchers here. Like my uncle has he raises elk, right? He just has them in a pasture. They just run around in this big, huge acreage thing, you know? And so it's easy for me to get good meat, but probably not everyone else, you know? It depends.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
it. First of all, hook me up with the elk plug. It's on a diet list that I have, and I don't have any way to access
You know
it. So
who? You know who is the elk plug? You know the Tranter brothers?
yeah,
You know they hunt elk?
I did not know that.
They hunt elk. Every time I'm at their place, they got frozen elk. It's
I need
sick.
elk.
I eat that elk because
Is it good? I don't know that I've ever had it. I probably have. I just don't remember.
So fucking good, bro.
Really?
It's so fire. I was shocked how good it tastes.
yeah.
I need the elk plug. Anybody who's got an elk plug, I reach out to Tranter Brothers. Luke,
Tranter
if you got
Bros.
the plug, let me
They
know,
got
bro.
the elk plug,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, I think mathematically speaking, the calorie deficit thing makes sense. I think that's also, and this is just my opinion. There's probably going to be somebody smarter than me about this stuff who's going to tell me I'm an idiot, which is fine. I think that's also a remnant of like just an old mindset when it comes to nutrition. I think weight loss and nutrition are not necessarily the same thing. I think they're connected, but they're not the same thing. I think you can be thin and extremely unhealthy.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And I think that's just good.
I was gonna say, especially like I was training for a show one time in college with my roommates, like a bodybuilder show. And the fact is that everyone that like we were not healthy. Like, you know, like you'll look shredded, but you're not healthy. Like kind of
Yeah.
just bringing that to the point of what you were saying. Like you can even look healthy and not be healthy.
It's funny, right? And Jonah, I don't know if you're up to it, guys. And guys, let us know if you're watching. I'm down to do a second week on this because I feel like we've just barely started to step into this conversation. And next week we can just go deeper into it. We can go a different direction. I'll default to you guys. But I'll tell you right now, I was on carnivore for off and on for about 18 months. And I could tell you a couple things. One, I thought the carnivore diet was BS for a long time. Why? Because I was ignorant. That's it. I mean, it just is what it is. Ignorance is a lack of knowledge. Most people respond to stuff from a uneducated place or an emotional biased place. And we just got to get over that crap. Like, get over it. I'm cool that your great grandma told you something, right? Or your bros in high school said the same thing. Get over it. Nobody cares, right? Learn the new information and be okay with letting go of something that you used to believe and that may not any longer be true. And that was me with the carnivore diet. I just thought it was silly because in my head, how do you get a balanced diet out of one thing, right? Which is just meat. Well, I didn't realize that the meat actually contains pretty much all of the nutrients that you could get from vegetables, and that meat in the process of the animal digesting the food actually gets rid of a lot of the defense chemicals, which vegetables all have that can wreak havoc on your digestive system. So some of you guys have heard this story because I've shared it in the past. I've struggled with health issues for a long time. I've struggled with gut issues since 2009. 1 year I had appendicitis like 3 or 4 times in 1 year. Did not get it removed. Every single time I got it fixed naturally, usually by juicing and doing an anti-inflammatory diet. And I led to this point to where one time I was in Mexico for my 40th birthday, a couple years back, Jonah. We're out there at a resort. And for whatever reason, this health problem, especially when it comes to my gut, flares up in the springtime. It took me like 2-3 years of being in the hospital to figure out that it all happened around the same time. And the only reason we realized that is because every single year on Yvonne's birthday, which is July 14th, send her gifts, I was in the hospital. And after the 3rd year, she's like, "Are you just doing this because you don't want to take me somewhere for my birthday?" I was like, "Maybe so. It's a good plan." Even though emergency rooms are more expensive than a nice restaurant. But so I was doing that. And 1 year, I've gone through that for years. Everything I tried didn't work. 1 year, we're going to Mexico. On the way to Mexico, I was thinking it's kind of towards the end of the season. Maybe my stomach will calm down. It did not calm down. I was laid out on the benches in excruciating pain, miserable, at the airport on the way to Mexico. Yvonne was like, "We do not have to go." I'm like, "I'm going. I'm not staying here." So we get in the airport. I'm there. I'm sick the whole way. I get there. I'm just miserable for the entire trip. It gets so bad that I'm about to go to an emergency room in Mexico. Like, I was in bad shape. Yeah. Like, bad shape. And we're at an all-inclusive resort, which are hit or miss. This one was fantastic. and they have every possible thing you can think of for food, and you can eat as much as you want of it. And I couldn't eat anything. I'm going to dinner and just sitting there. And I'm like, okay, let me just get soup. Made me sick. Let me just get salad. Made me sick. Let me just eat nuts, because they had this little pack of nuts, like with like a mixed nuts thing in the room. I'm like, let me just eat. Everything I tried that we would think was healthy made me sick. I had started looking into the carnivore diet for autoimmune issues because Yvonne has type 1 diabetes. She was diagnosed like the year before. And so I had been looking into carnivore as it relates to autoimmune disease, and it has extremely surprising benefits for autoimmune disease. And I was like, you know what? Try it. I'm still on the fence, but right now I'm miserable. And so we made a decision. I remember that night I was extremely sick. And I said, all right, this is the last thing we're going to do. We're like 3 days into our trip. And I said, tomorrow morning, I'm going to try carnivore for breakfast. If it doesn't work, we're going to the hospital or we're going home. We'll just see how I feel. If I can make it home, we'll make it home. Right? So that's how bad it was. 40th birthday, I'm miserable. The next morning, I woke up, had steak and eggs. That's it. Steak and eggs. Jonah, I swear to God.
Carnivore?
Yep. I had steak and eggs for breakfast.
All right, whatever.
Dude, I was fine. It was the first time I had eaten since we got to Mexico where I didn't get sick. It was weird. I was like, you've got to be joking me. Like, I didn't believe it because I was such a skeptic about carnivore. I was like, nah, fam, we got lucky. Maybe I'm just getting better. Bro, all I did was eat steak for the rest of the time. I had steak and eggs every morning, and we just went to the steak. All I had was steak. That is it for the rest of the trip. I did not get sick again. Like, my stomach was still super sensitive because I was so sick. So I was still a little bit uncomfortable, but I never got sick again. I was never in pain. And that's what led me on that process. About a year and a half, every single time I started to get sick, I did carnivore and I would be fine. The one downside about carnivore is it never healed the problem. The second I got off it, in a short period of time, the problem would always come back. But while I was on it, I was fine. And that leads to something else, which I won't go into today, which is why I said we can do this again. But what I will say is that as far as giving me a quality of life, anybody who's seen me at events, like I've been out with Pace, right? Like we're out at events, we're doing things. I'm just walking around with steak. You know what I mean? I'm the weirdo. Like we go to a taco spot. I scrape we were at, what was it? The Montana thing, community camp. Did you go to community camp, Jonah?
I was there. Yeah.
So I was there. Everybody had left and we're just hanging out at Jerry's house. Vina was there. Pace was there. Vina takes we were actually supposed to go to Glacier, but Vina took my rental car to go get food and then didn't come back for 2 hours. So we couldn't make it to Glacier because of sunset. So we were just hanging out and it's Kalispell. They ran out of food. Everything was closed. So she literally came back with like 4 different fast food spots to have enough food for the people that were hanging behind because we had filmed some podcasts and we had done some stuff. Dude, cool. I'm literally like scraping the meat out of the tacos from the taco spot and taking the breading off the fried chicken. Like I've gotten that. That's where I would, if I'm out, like I figured out how to make it work. And that's not ideal, but I figured out how to make it work. I do think there's a better way, which I've learned recently, but carnivore to a certain degree saved my life for about a year and a half.
Carnivore is an interesting one. I mean, I don't know much about it. I know it mainly because of Michaela Peterson's story, which might have been where you heard it from with autoimmune disease, and Jordan Peterson. That's where I first ever even heard of it, with the potential health effects with autoimmune stuff. Works for them. Seems cool. I agree. I think certain autoimmune diseases, it does help for sure. It's an interesting thing to try if you deal with autoimmune diseases. And you're also right, Luke, in the sense that eating meat is so filling that you'll lose weight. I'm a vegetarian because of more political stuff than health stuff. I don't think being a vegetarian is actually a healthy move.
The government, really? To protect the same government that we just established is screwing us over?
More or less, yeah. I do it to protect the fucking government, Keanu. Shut up, dude. Shut the hell up. Okay, I was a meat eater for like literally 25 out of the 29 years I've been alive. No, it's not to protect the goddamn government. But it's not healthy in the sense that if I only ate vegetarian and didn't take certain supplements, I would be missing certain nutritional stuff. And also, Yeah, like I don't think it's the healthiest diet. Like I think
Well,
the
fun fact.
healthiest.
Go ahead.
I just think the healthiest, I think, probably is paleo, but
I think that's fair.
know.
If we discuss this next week, I'll go into some details about my my current thing that I'm on, which is very, very interesting to me.
What are you on
But-
right now? We have 30 minutes. I'm curious. You're not doing carnivore anymore?
No, I'm not, and it'll take too long to go into it.
Will
But
it?
yes, I promise, because I want to show some stuff. But
Okay.
that being said, Yvonne was a vegetarian for 20 plus years, developed type 1 diabetes in her 40s, and had to stop being a vegetarian because she needed the nutrition to survive. Right. And so I do think that there are certain people on this planet who are biologically built to be vegans or vegetarians. I don't think that that's impossible. I think there are some people who will thrive. And I think there have been studies that have been done, and I can find the study. I think the number is like less than 8%. Like less than 8% of the population is biologically built to survive as a vegan because they have certain biomarkers that allow their body to process those things and turn them. When I tried everything. I tried just doing vegetables. I tried just doing different stuff. Soy is absolutely horrible for you. Soy is poison in the body unless it's fermented. I don't know why anybody would even ever put soy in their body. But yeah, not everything made me sick except for carnivore. And it was mind blowing to me because I was even doubtful about it.
I've heard some interesting things like when people have diseases with carnivore diets that I think that's the best diet if there's like some disease, like you're dealing with like something health, like there's some health stuff happening. I don't know if it's the best if you don't have some underlying disease. Most of the benefits I've read or heard about with it have to do with like you have a disease and then it starts going away from that. Does it mean it's actually healthier? I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
So look, the CEO, wow, only heard about plant-based diets helping health greatly. One of his best friend's girlfriends and him swear by it, and they beat Graves' disease with it. Right?
I think it depends on the person. I will say this, being a vegetarian, I feel lighter than when I eat meat. Like I actually physically feel a little bit lighter. Might be because I was eating shitty
be a
food.
vegan.
What is that supposed to mean? Are you
I
trying to
don't
fight
know.
me? What the hell does that mean, Keanu? What does that mean?
I'll also mention with the
was that just a way of saying like you could be a huge bitch? Like what does that mean?
Luke, you were saying, bro.
Interpret that as like you're just a huge, like you look like you could be a huge bitch right now.
I gotta be nice to Jonah, or else he's gonna shut down my Simple Send account.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. You need Simple Send.
But also with the carnivore diet, like just getting like protein, like you're getting a lot of leucine and creatine in your system too. Then, which there's correlations to how much muscle mass you have on your body, and that being a big contributor to life expectancy. I can't say the word. And stuff like that. Have you heard? Have you listened to Andrew Huberman ever, Jonah?
I have a little bit.
Yeah, he just had one with this Dr. Gabriel Lyon. It's pretty good. He just did it this week, and she was talking about not much about nutrition, but just like skeletal muscle mass and like how that helps you age pretty much, and like gives you a better life later on. She had said a bunch of stuff that I'll probably missay, so I'm not even gonna try. But it's interesting to look into. But I got to hop off now.
All right, my man.
I'm literally just eating meat for dinner. It's just ground beef in a bowl.
Keep on that carnivore diet. Have fun with your daughter. And
Luke, appreciate you. Thank you for coming out here and being the voice of reason. And not everybody can trust the government as much as Jonah does.
If you have a tinfoil hat one, I'll also say that like
you're gonna come out here, bro. You're gonna come out here.
No, the biggest lobbyist is like the pharmaceutical companies, and they want you sick so they can sell you their drugs.
That's a whole nother. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm more anti company than I. The thing is like I'm not conspiratorial, Keanu. I just think we have different sources in my head of where shit comes from. Luke, we'll let you go though. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on.
You, brother.
All right. Okay, so where should we go with this?
So Jonah, what do you think, dude? Should we do a follow-up on this and like really dig in? What do you think?
Sure, but I feel like, I mean, what more do you want to do? I'm like curious. We got 30 minutes. What would you want to talk about in a follow-up episode?
I mean, I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface about this thing. There's so many different things.
What would we be about next time?
First of all, we can continue on the diet that I'm currently on. We can break that down, get some information about that. We could go the tinfoil hat direction if we want to. We don't necessarily have to. But another thing we could do is
isn't food as much. Like it could be related to food, but that's like
it could be. But then another thing we could do is we could bring people on. I would actually like to have some like conversations like the CEO, people who have had life-changing impacts because of a specific diet and why. Because I would like to see if we can get to a common denominator here. Why? Because I believe that there's people out here right now who are sick. And when they go to Google what's going on, one, they're either not Googling anything because they're just listening to their doctor, which respectfully, I think there's some amazing doctors out there. I think that's extremely irresponsible and it's silly.
I think you need a balance with that. That would be, I think food can solve a lot of diseases, a lot more than doctors say they can. I do agree with you on that. And
or are educated that they can. And that's a problem. And I think that there's probably some people out there who may watch this podcast one day who are sick, or they have a family member who's sick and struggling with something, and they don't realize that that could be fixed. Like imagine, and I'll say this, imagine you're the family in that PubMed situation that I told you, and your husband, your father, is being told by doctors, multiple medical professionals, well-intended, well-educated, working hard, trying their best, but have such limited information, and they're being told, you're done. You're going to die in less than 4 weeks, and we can't do anything about it. Imagine being in that frame of mind. Imagine the terror and the fear and the sadness that's going over you because you're being told by who you're trusting that there are no options. And then lo and behold, somebody comes and says, yeah, all that stuff that they were doing didn't work because they were wrong. Here's this little tiny pill. Take this little tiny pill, stop eating these particular foods, and then magically a month later, this person's not only not dying, but they're extremely healthy. And they get a whole new lease on life. There are real people who are in those circumstances every single day in our country and in the world, but let's just say in our country. And I believe that there are that many people, or at least a decent amount of people, who have a solution on the other side. Maybe there's people who aren't all the way at that close to a tipping point, but they're earlier on and they're just not feeling great. And so for me, I think that being able to create a dialogue that brings education to the information that's not as easily available. It took me decades to learn and compile all of this information and sift through BS on top of it and all of the different things. So I think that if we can be the source of really, really just providing some information to people, that could be helpful. Maybe we help somebody, but it's only helpful if it's helpful. So, you know, you got to be okay with it. And the people that are watching have to be okay with it.
I think the hard part with those types of stories, I feel like there are times where problems aren't what they seem they are. Like your friend, or sorry, like the whatever, the magazine, where it's like, okay, it's your diet that's screwing you up. And then there's other times where you actually do have cancer. And the hard part is to figure out which is which. I think what it's eventually gonna happen in society is we're gonna become, because I think all right, here's this is my more conspiratorial side, because I'm not fully pro government, pro doctors, everything. I think there's a lot of research that I think could be done into literally just diets and how they can prevent diseases, right? I agree. I think a lot of diseases, I think actually the vast majority of diseases are caused by diet. The vast majority. Like,
interesting.
Number one killer of human, like, I mean, what's the number one killer of Americans? It's heart disease, right? I forgot what's after that. I think it might be lung cancer. Reasons Americans die. Top leading causes of death. Medical news today. I'll share my screen real quick just because I'm like curious. I know heart disease is the first one. I thought it was heart disease. Wait a minute. Yeah, heart disease. That's obviously diet, right? That's like fast food, processed food. That's what's causing that because it clogs your arteries. Cancer, this can be broken down. I think cancer kind of depends on what it was. Might just be mold, like you were saying. I don't know. But like literally, that's 37.4%. Vast majority of cancer, I think, has to do with diet or you're just really old. This one is like all diet, basically, more or less, right? Some genetics, but almost all heart disease is caused by this is just the obesity epidemic, to be honest, right there.
And then, from what I'm understanding, low testosterone.
And possibly that too, right? But potentially up to 37.4% is just diet. Okay, like just getting hit, whatever. I'm willing to bet most of these diseases have to do with that as well. I don't know about these as much, or Alzheimer's. I'm not diabetes.
You know that Alzheimer's is literally considered type 3 diabetes because of its association with diet, sugars, fat content, all of those different things. Yeah.
I know Alzheimer's because it runs in my family. I know the number one way to prevent it is exercise. That I definitely know.
Yeah, there was a story about a doctor who, for his own family member, had his father-in-law was very, very aggressively getting dementia to the point to where he couldn't remember his family's names. It was really, really bad. Right. He was a naturopathic doctor. He was asked by the family to help because their doctors weren't doing it. He looked at his doctor. He was on a statin for blood pressure. Took him off the statin, told him to eat more butter. Within a week, he was almost completely better. And he was months. Yeah, because he needed fat.
How did he know he needed fat, though?
Because the nature of that issue is that your brain is largely cholesterol. Cholesterol is the oil lubrication for your brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's cholesterol. So he told him to up his cholesterol intake, get off of the statin drugs, and within a week, the father-in-law called him crying, thanking him because he hadn't felt like that in decades. And then over time, he just got back to complete normal.
It's so interesting. I don't know. It's so hard because I go back and forth. I think certain things, prescription drugs, are really useful, and I think for certain things, it's really not useful. Like there are certain things where it's like, all right, a Tylenol is gonna make you feel is a good painkiller. It's not healthy for you, but it's good painkiller. I don't think it's the best one. I do feel like insulin, if you do have diabetes, is good. Right?
Yeah. And I think that, things like that are essential. I mean, if you get, into a situation where you need an emergency room, you probably want an emergency room doctor there. Like there's some fantastic scenarios where that is a reality. But I think there's other sides too, right? And the propensity of us to have, drive-throughs as our primary go-to source, right? I haven't eaten fast food.
I want to know do you feel like you can't do your story in 20 minutes? Like I feel like,
and plus I have a seller that's been waiting for me for 15 minutes to lock up.
Okay. Do we end these at an hour and a half? I thought we were doing 2 hours.
No, we should definitely do 2 hours. Today I double booked myself, and then he gave me an hour extension. And so let's
do this then. You got money to make. Let's do this, guys. Next week, DM me.
Guys, let us know in the chat. I want to hear in the chat. Do you want us to continue the diet conversation? Do you want us to transition, option number 2, to the conspiratorial side of the diet conversation? Or option 3, do you want us to do both? Let us know in the comments which you would prefer. We'll happily dig into this because I definitely think there's more to talk to and talk about, and I would love to talk to more people as well. Jonah, would you be okay with it? What do you think, man? You up for it?
I'd be cool with it. Yeah. If you think we can do another podcast on it, I don't know. I don't know if you want to do it next week or if we want to do it after, but
we can figure it out. We can figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many good topics. I do want to. We've been doing a couple serious ones though, so it would be cool to go back to a funny one. I like the woman in a forest choosing between a man and a bear. I don't know if that's been like a huge thing.
I can do that. That's gonna be some. That's gonna be some. That's gonna be a
fun one. That would be a fun one. We need some women though who are like, are they going to choose the man?
I actually know ladies who have decided they would choose the bear, so we can bring them up here.
I could make that one really spicy if I wanted to. I heard like a comedian say this. We don't have to talk about it. We can end this podcast. We can talk about it later. But there's some really spicy questions we can ask that are really going to throw the ladies through a loop.
That'll be a good one. This guy said spiritual diet. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
Rome is a good one too, Luke. I agree. That was like the main.
Thinking about Rome.
How often do you think about Rome?
I don't.
I think
outside
about it
of my historical studies things because I've studied a lot about
history. I think about Rome like about once a week.
That's odd. I don't think about Rome outside of the historical context of other topics.
Okay. We'll end it here, guys. We'll have a topic for you guys next week. It'll be fun. It might be something more lighthearted. It might be something like this. I think we'll be doing a lot of serious ones. I think it'd be good to do a lighthearted one next week and then maybe do another food one after. But
we can do it. We can do it. We can bring it back, guys. Ultimately, we're doing this for you guys. So we'd love to hear what you guys think. If you don't tell us, we're going to make our own decisions and you're going to have to like it or you can go watch somebody else. But I hope you actually like it and actually watch us. Also, are you guys liked and subscribed and do you have certain notifications turned on? Are we friends? Can we be friends? Can you push the buttons and do the things? Can you tell your friends about it? Did the podcast suck? If the podcast suck, you should tell your friends to watch the podcast so they can give their opinion, right? Give your friends the link if this podcast sucked and have them tell us if they agree with you. If you liked it, then obviously you should give it to your friends for obvious reasons because you're a good friend. I think that's fair, right, Jonah? What do you agree? Do you agree?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, comment, subscribe, cause some controversy. This has been a fun one. I think we've had a lot of good conversations in the chat, and yeah, we'll do another one next week. That'll be freaking awesome.
And hopefully by this time next week, I will not feel like I feel like I faked it pretty good today. So
you seemed healthy as hell. I wouldn't have known unless you said it.
Fantastic. That means mission accomplished. So hopefully by this time next week, I'll actually feel as good as I'm pretending to feel. But that being said, this is what it's about. This is why we have these conversations. I really appreciate you guys. Jonah, I appreciate you holding it down for last week. I'm excited for more cool topics. And I think it's going to be fun.
I love it. All right, guys. Until next week, peace out.
Paradox out.
Out.